G'day, guys, and welcome to Warrior by Design. We've got another wicked guest on here. We've got Paul Walsh on here, and he is the founder, alongside his wife, of Gracious Flow. These guys have a committed life and dedicated years to the actual holistic way of life. Paul himself has been a professional dancer. He knows what it means to be on the extreme side of things, and he knows what it means to be dedicated and committed. This man has had his own journey through life, one of struggle to where he is today, where he's actually dedicating his life to be assisting others and their families into moving forward. Gracious Flow is one of a family dynamic with him and his wife. What's your wife's name again, Paul? Sorry.
Her beautiful name is Sarah.
Thank you. So Sarah and Paul have created Gracious Flow, which is a holistic way of being. They use techniques like holistic counseling and body work and all sorts of remedial modalities and so forth. But Paul his real focus at the moment is about assisting others in being able to experience what it is they want to experience, right? So thank you so much, Paul, for being on here today. And we were sort of having a bit of a chat in the background, in regards to coming home. And, I was just wondering if there's anything you want to share with the guys before we get into it, and if there's any more you want to add.
Oh, well, no, look, great to be here, and I really appreciate being on with you. Total inspiration. Thanks, Ben. What else do I want to share? Coming home. Really? Oh, it's a big one.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah. And we talk about we were talking about coming home just a little bit earlier, and we weren't talking about actually the physicality of walking in a front door. It's about coming home to finding the true self, the authentic being within.
Totally.
Around all the external chatter and conditionings and thought processes that we've sort of adopted. I like to call it the blueprint of adoption.
Love it. Love it.
And understanding that blueprint and how it creates our perception, our filter, our reaction, our unconscious thinking patterns. And when we start to unravel and unwrap that blueprint, we start to come back to what we were talking about earlier, coming back to home, coming back to self, understanding the true self behind it all.
Yeah, I love it. And when you talk about the blueprint, Paul, can you give a little bit more detail on how you would explain it to people of how do we come about this blueprint, and, how does that, form some of our experiences to where we, even need that navigational, I suppose, GPS to be able to find our way home?
Yeah, well, I like to call it a blueprint because it's like if you look at building surveyors and things like that, they have the blueprint on how things are put together. A blueprint of how we are, like particularly as we get older, our perceptions and views and thoughts that we have created over our life are all linked to the experiences that we've gone through, but those experiences that we go through have been colored by the patternings that have been laid upon us from earlier on in our journey and earlier on in our development in our life. So the blueprint is what I see is what I talk when I'm talking about the blueprint is the overlay that has been put on us by experiences, by it can be by a teacher's opinion of us, it can be by interactions from family groups, it can be by an experience that's defined a moment in a life. And as we move forward and get older, our opinions, our views, our feelings around certain situations are then colored by this particular blueprint.
Excellent. And, if we're talking about this blueprint, we talk about coming home. Yep. What do you see, I suppose, prevalent or something that is of assistance when it comes to, that overlaying blueprint and coming back to our original, so home, ourself, coming back to who we truly are, and our actual forming our own blueprint, or actually recovering that is there any way you'd be able to sort of tell the others of, what is this coming home?
Well, it's about sort of redesigning. If we look at how where we're at in our everyday and where we want to get, what our dream and goal is, asking the questions of what's stopping us getting there. Asking the questions, well, I know this is where I want to go, but with my thinking patterns that I'm having, I've been trying to get there, but not. How can I do that? So when I talk about belief changing, things that you've been told, like when you're a kid, as much as you grow up and you evolve and you think you're going through life and you have all these experiences, you become independent, you become an individual, you start your married life, you go through your teenage years, you go into your married life, and then at some point you start to question, well, is this true? Is this really me? Am I really following my path, or am I choosing decisions by influences that have been put on me that I've adopted through my journey to this point? And then that coming home is about stripping those back, looking at them, finding out whether they're truths or whether they're just filters. And are they serving you? Are they helping you to get forward, or are they those little voices that we hear of that, inner critic, the self-limiting belief pattern, the saboteur that restricts you from getting to that next step? I mean, obviously there are lots of things that go on in our lives that color how we see our present. But trying to work out through what it is that's actually truth and what it is that's a perception of what the truth is what redesigning that blueprint is about to me. Yeah. Understanding those overlays that we have adopted unconsciously.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so much out there in the way of describing this, right? Like we talk about, the child and from 0 to 7, we how much we actually adopt, and we absorb and we take around from our environment around us, and so on and so forth. We talk about, there's a lot of talk out there about blueprint. There's a lot of people that talk about this blueprint, and there's an interesting aspect to that, because blueprints are something that it's an initial diagram, right? It's an initial drawing, and it's something that allows us to have a basis to survive in life, a basis to create. But the interesting thing about a blueprint is, through the beautiful skills of an architect, we can truly design what it is we want. While we have those initial blueprints, we can truly design the house or the foundations or even that life that we really want, right? And we can change that, we can redraw it, we can modify it, we can completely scrap it and go with a whole new thing. And I love the fact of this coming home that we're talking about, because we were talking about it, my journey with PTSD, and you were talking about a bit about a personal journey of your own, and
yep.
That coming to home, like we get to a point in our lives where, like for myself, if I talk about myself personally, you come to a point where you realize just how much choice you really do have, in the sense that you can have a choice to be happy in this moment or not. You can also choose, like, for instance, even things like, if we got business, or, there's chores that we have to do or whatever. There are things that we may or may not want to do in life. But then we also, if we look at those aspects of things that we may see as chores, or we may see as, I suppose, tying us down or making us be in a situation that allows us to, allows us to, have these uncomfortable feelings, or this feeling of, what do I really want to do this? What I
Yep.
found interesting myself is we actually, like, when we go down the nuts and bolts of it, we're doing it because we choose we want to do it. Even if it's something like, for instance, someone's leaving a coffee mug on the table and we're like, oh, bloody hell, blah, blah, blah. Well, we're choosing to pick that coffee mug up because it's actually it makes us feel better for it not to be there,
Yep.
but the perception around that isn't, oh, this makes me feel better when I pick up this coffee mug to go put it away. The perception is like, oh my God, who left the coffee mug out? Blah, blah, blah. That's one way of looking at it, right?
Yep.
So coming to home, and our perceptions and our beliefs, can you maybe share with the guys maybe some personal stories or some stuff and some strategies? How do we come from, i.e., that going from that coffee mug being, oh, who put it out there, rah, 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 to potentially seeing the whole world in a different way, and then now seeing that coffee cup and going, oh geez, I'm going to pick that up and put it away because that really makes me feel good?
Yeah. Probably one of the biggest words is ownership.
Yeah.
Owning your thoughts, owning your feelings, owning your reactions, owning the moment that you're in is a really big one. Finding that ability to be able to own it, rather than look for external ways to be disconnected from it.
Yep.
It's easy to blame situations. It's easy to blame other things. It's easy to find reasons why things aren't working. But the beauty of the thing is that we are the power. We have the power to make any situation the way it is. We can choose what that situation can be by how we look at it. Look, on a personal journey, I'm 47 this coming year. I've had a colourful trip, there's been a huge journey for me from leaving home at 15 to getting to where I am today, and I've been lucky because I was blessed with a bit of a courageous spirit to be a bit of a go-getter and just believe early on in my life in myself, which through probably till I was maybe mid-20s was still strong. But I've been through a journey of probably losing my confidence through life experiences, losing myself and losing my authentic self, because I probably dropped myself. I got into a place where I was spent too busy trying to please everybody else.
Yeah.
Which it happens when you're a person that likes to be in service of others, and you leave yourself short because you tend to offer out a lot of energy to try and help others, and you forget about yourself, and then you fall in a heap. And that overwhelm kicks in, and you feel like every time you're doing, and this is just from past history and experience, is you're putting out, and then there'll be a day where you'll go, oh, I'm sick of this. I've got nothing left. And you have to retreat, and you retract, and you go back in, and then you feel like you're doing a self-disturb. And for me, until I figured out that was part of what I was doing, I was still doing good, but I wasn't doing any good for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we talk about the coming home is working out how you can still be in service, but more importantly, how you can be in service to yourself. Because without being able to without understanding what it is to be in service to yourself, you can't really fully be in service to anybody else.
Yeah. I love that. And that's it's a crucial part, right? And it's something, you know, I personally struggle with myself, you know, in regards to being okay with looking after me, you know, being okay with having boundaries, being okay. And, you know, I think the reason, like, I'm at a place now where I can have these without what I would have called back then the fuck you, right? So I'm at a place now where I can have those boundaries where it's not, no, fuck you. You know, the boundaries that I have now, there's still love there. There's no anger, there's no frustration, there's no hate. But, and does that mean that it's always that way? No, of course not. But when I find myself like yourself, when I'm home, when I'm being my authentic self, when I'm being me, and I'm know that I'm safe in doing that, and I feel comfortable within myself doing that, I don't see it the same way. You know, I don't see what still may be affected me emotionally. I don't see it as a personal attack, where once I did. I'd see it as a personal attack, you know. And the reality I've come to now, and I'd love to know your part on it, is if this is me, my inside, my authentic self, where I'm trying to do my best and I'm not out there to maliciously hurt anyone, is there a chance the person on the other end may be going through some of their own stuff and also not maliciously being out to attack you or hurt you or emotionally, you know, cripple you? And that, you know, look, there are scenarios where, you know, it's very different, right? There are scenarios where it can be malicious and it can be other things, and, you know, so that's not to certainly, what I'm saying is certainly not to ridicule any of those experiences that may be had. But I would ask, even in those experiences, could there be something that could be done differently to protect oneself?
Compassion. You know, it's having compassion, like hearing what people are saying and taking on what people are saying are two different things.
Mm.
You know, when it comes to that, when you're talking about that maliciousness, generally, if someone's lashing out or someone's in reaction, it's because of the pain that they're going through.
Mm.
It's not because of something you've done, it's because it's triggered something.
Mm.
So having the compassion to hear what someone's saying and be able to not take it on board, but to be able to maybe support someone to work through it for themselves, gives you the power, not over the other person, but over your own self, on how you hear it, how you deal with it, and how you process it for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I know from my own personal journey, for me to get to a point where I feel like I can be in a clear space of compassion, there are things that I have to do on a regular basis. You know, meditation practice, journaling, nature walks, fishing for me is a huge one. You know, I'm going through my own personal PTSD journey. The only thing that saved me was be able to get out and go fly fishing, because it was the time I could quieten the mind, because I was totally focused in what we call as practitioners in the flow state of fishing.
Yeah.
You know, where nothing else mattered. And it's still to this day one of my go-tos to really come home to myself and be in that zone and in tune, and that's where a lot of epiphanies come for me of what's going on, is when I'm in that state. And that returns me back to that center point where I can be so much more compassionate with everybody around me. Running a family, you know, being in a family unit, like you were talking about earlier, there's lots of dynamics that you've got to try and navigate. I've got young kids and I've got older kids. My kids age from 18 down to 13 months old, and there's 6 of them. So the dynamics are really challenging. There's 3 that I don't get to see as much, and I've got 3 younger ones from 5, 3, and 30-month-old in the house, and the dynamics of that, particularly through the last couple of years through lockdown, has been challenging. And there's been reactions, and there's been triggers, and there's been all sorts of things go on. But being able to see it from the point of view where, okay, what's actually going on here? What's the feeling behind this reaction? Well, where is my 5-year-old obviously very expressive on his emotionals, but obviously at 5 doesn't quite understand what emotions go with what feeling. So being able to step back and go, okay, there's something going on underneath this. How do we support him? Rather than being on the, like as my parents would have done, on the flip side, whereas if I'd have had an emotion, they would have just triggered them, and they'd have flipped it and lost it. Now, being older, wiser, and being able to, with all this skill set that I've learned through the years in looking at life on a holistic level, you can just go, okay, what is he really going through here? And I get to be able to use that when I'm working with clients too. You go, okay, this is where they're coming from, but what's underneath all this? Why is it there? What's happening? How do we understand this, and how do we use it to move forward? How can we redirect the intention in this to make it something that we can grow from?
Yeah, I love that. So if you were to say, like, to give the guys a little bit of a little bit of detail, just for ourselves personally, how can we come to a point in ourselves where we take this ownership, and where we can challenge our beliefs, and also, come to a point of having healthy boundaries for ourselves? And, what is a boundary? What is a healthy boundary?
I think forgiveness is the first one. And that's not forgiveness of others, that's forgiveness of yourself. Because learning to forgive yourself for mistakes, I don't like to call things as a mistake. It's a learning experience. Everything we do is something we can gain gold from. No matter how bad or how other people may see it as something that is wrong, it's not a mistake, because everything we do has the opportunity to grow and learn something from it. So, like, forgiveness of self is probably the first one. Sorry, what was the other bit of your question?
Yeah, so I was saying, so if we say, let's just say, how do we come to the point of being able to have challenge some of these beliefs, and also understand, I suppose, what healthy boundaries are?
Healthy boundaries is a really good one, because it's something that I've been challenged with. Being okay with being able to say no and honoring yourself. When we look at doing things for ourselves, the society conditions, and there's a lot of overlay of condition that it's a selfish act. Yeah. So we sort of divert from actually taking that time to do things for ourselves, because the perception is that it's a selfish thing to do, particularly when you've got other people that rely on you and look after you, and that you've got to look after. I think flipping that to a selfless act, because once you do put in a boundary and you do honor yourself, like I said earlier, you've got so much more to give to others. Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, if you take an hour of the day to do some self-practice, for the other, 13 hours of the day that you're interacting with other people, you're much more present. You're much more able to interact. But if you continue to go through a day where you wake up and you're continuously giving, eventually the well becomes dry and you have nothing left to give. So it's really important to make sure that you do, I don't want to say regiment, but instill a self-care practice on a regular basis.
And that can look different for everyone, right? That self-care. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for my partner, for Sarah, I mean, she's a yoga teacher. So obviously yoga is a huge one for her in regards to her self-care and her journaling practice. And, self-care can be reading an inspirational book, like taking that moment to like read an inspirational book. It could be anything. Like for me, I'll go out for a ride on my mountain bike. It's energy output. I'm an Aries, so I need that fire. I'll go for a ride on my mountain bike. And that is a self-care moment because it allows me to sort of burn off that energy, the fire within. It sort of tames the fire within, but it also energizes the soul. And I come home in a much better space than what I left the house with. Same. Going and sitting down by the beach can do the same thing. You can still work on that fire base, but you work on a different level. So absolutely, self-care is something that's totally individual. But the key to it is allocating adequate time to do it without guilt.
Mm.
Because it's not self-care if there's guilt attached.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's self-abuse.
You're just torturing yourself, trying to have fun, not allowing yourself to have fun because you're guilty.
Yeah, because you go, and look, I know I'm not superhuman. I've done it before. I've been out when we lived in Tassie. I go out fishing, and I knew it was the thing I needed to do, and I'd be out there for the first half hour to an hour, and I'd be loving my fishing. And then you'd be like, oh, I shouldn't be still doing this, but one more cast, and I've got to get home. No, one more cast. And the last part of the self-care moment becomes self-abuse because the guilt kicks in, and and it's like you got to be careful with that self-critical talk,
Totally.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like we even the concept of self-care, like it's like you hear it all the time, to support others, you got to look after yourself first. You got to fill your own cup first. You got to make sure that that you've got everything you require, and all these sorts of different things that are out there in regards to hearing that we need to look after ourselves before we can look after, if it's something we want to do, look after others. And if not, that's fine too. And it doesn't require to be guilt around that. It doesn't require to be, it's not something that we have to do, but it's an interesting one that we are kind of conditioned, I think. And I don't think this is separate between the sexes or beliefs or races or nationality. I think we are conditioned in a sense that to look after our little ones, look after our family, look after our loved ones, our partners, our whatever it is. There's a conditioning to serve others.
Yep.
In some sense, and it's not for everyone, and it's not everyone has that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there largely that definitely exists. And I think it's an interesting one that when we come to that point of looking after self, why so many find it challenging, why so many find it challenging to even have fun in something they want to do. Just say someone wants to start a business and they find it, they struggle because they don't allow themselves to enjoy it. They're too busy trying to do what someone else has told them to do, or how it should be done, or how it needs to be, or, you know, and the same with health and fitness and other things. It's like, it's an interesting one. Like, yes, we need to get knowledge, we need to get experience, we need to have understandings, you know, we need to learn the stuff we don't know in whatever area it is, to be able to have what it is we want to have, whether it's business, health, personal development. But there's a point, I find, where maybe we've got to move beyond what we're being told, what we're being shown, and experiencing what's right for us with what we've been told, with what we've been shown. And how do we adapt that to us? How do we transform that for us? Or how do we make that best work for us?
Yep. I think one thing that comes out of self-care when you do take time to go in and you look at what it is that you need to keep yourself ticking, is you start to hear more of what makes you tick. When you stop, you know, you start to, when you, it's that coming back to home. I mean, we are communal-based creatures, you know, we look for external support. We're community minded, you know, we are social creatures. But I think the power comes in when you not disconnect from the external, but reconnect with the internal.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, like the externals are there, yes, and you can find influence, you can be
Inspired.
word. You can be inspired by others, you can be guided by others, you can be, you know, you can be led by others, and look at outside for all this knowledge and all this wisdom and all this, you know, this. But reality is, you know it all. You know, we don't need to know everything, but what we do need to know is how and who we are as individuals, so that we can know more.
Yeah.
You know, that's that whole concept of searching for that enlightenment. You know, it's an unachievable goal, because there is always going to be more that you can learn. But being comfortable with what you know and who you are allows you to then be able to know what it is that you want to learn, not just keep running and searching.
Yeah, love that.
And
that's important.
So that's that coming home.
Yeah.
That's that coming home. Like, you know, we're conditioned from early on about what education is. You know, everything when it comes down to the education system is about learning from history that's been documented by a certain particular viewpoint. Everything we learn is from somebody's opinion and view, not our own. And we all have a different perception how things are, you know. So all well and good. We all need to learn certain things in our lives, but we all need to learn different things too, because that's what keeps us unique. It's what keeps us as the individuals. So when you can come home and you start to listen to what it is about who and what it is that makes you tick, and how to then navigate your life being authentic and true to what it is that makes you tick, empowers you to be able to make the right choices for you, so everybody else sees you shining at a brighter light.
Yeah, and there's a common saying that I keep hearing or have heard a few times now is, you know, a rising water or rising tide lifts all the boats. you know, all the boats around, or all the boats within that body of water, all the boats rise at the same time. There is no, you know, there is no one being left behind unless it's got a hole in it. You know, all the boats rise with the rising tide, right? And that's something, you know, we hear of this shining your light and doing this sort of thing. It's not about people aren't lifting people up, but what they are doing is, when you shine your own light, when you're able to have your own, you know, do that for yourself, and that gives other people permission, not that they need it, but it allows people around you see that, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. They're still a decent person. You know, they're not this selfish individual because they're looking after themselves that, you know, I feel like I'm going to be if I look after myself. Maybe it's okay for me to do that. Maybe I can trust myself to do that and know that that's okay.
Yep. Cellular frequency, it comes to that, you know, like when you're being true to yourself, your vibration lifts, and those heart waves, you know, that wave of power that you can create by being true and being honest and being internal, coming home, your body frequency expands, you know, 3 meters outside your being. So just that frequency can affect someone you're sitting next to. You know, that's why people are drawn to these vibrant, you know, you get drawn to that energy because it's infectious. But if you look behind how that person has gotten to that point of being able to emanate that sort of energy, is because they've come in and they've built it from within.
Yeah. No one's given it to them. No one's told them how to achieve it verbatim.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I love that. Is there anything else you want to share with the guys? Anything else you want to, you know, any topic or anything you want to bring to the table with your own awareness?
Well, I guess, you know, I feel as though we're in a transition stage. You know, I honestly do. Like, from people that I speak to, there's a lot of shedding going on at the moment. There's a lot of clearing of, you know, old perceptions and patterns, and there's a feeling of growth happening. And I think we're probably heading into really interesting times, where I think personal growth is going to be something that's really, the lockdowns and things like that happens has stimulated people to start what we've been talking about, trying to come home, because that running and that fast pace of life that we're all into and all that, we're forced to go into a sedentary position. And when we go into slowing down, we start to be able to tune in and question and listen to ourselves more. And I feel like out of this, we're probably going to evolve to understanding things on a bit of a different level, about what's important, what's needed, and how we can support one another on a greater level. You know, I'm excited about this time because I think, you know, particularly when it comes down to the holistic counselling side, being able to support people to fulfill and live the desires that they want for themselves. It's an honor to be able to be in a space where you can do that, because people are starting to question more at the moment. People are wanting something different, and some people aren't quite sure how to get there. You know, there's a lot of out there, but some people just need some space to be able to do it.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I even noticed like the language is changing. You know, there's a lot more moving from help to support. You know, and that support is, you know, one, you said it earlier, that we all know what we all really have what we need to achieve what it is we want to achieve, but allowing someone and or supporting, allowing someone to see that for themselves by allowing, by providing or offering support, and obviously there's things to explore that can come to help people or support people rather in coming to that realization for themselves is a huge thing, and it's a massive thing, because I think of the money that I've spent on personal development and everything else, has allowed me to come to a point of realizing that while I took a lot from some of these things and I took bits and pieces and it allowed me to experience new things for myself, what I got out of it more than anything is I already had it all. I just needed to trust. I just needed to believe. I just needed to, and there were some things that some of the things that you don't know. Some of that stuff that I was able to bring into my awareness that served me, because your brain would explode with the stuff that you don't know that's out in the universe, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
But it's about finding that stuff for ourselves personally, what it is that we require to be able to have that journey, which you said earlier, to move forward and to move past. So I love what you're saying and what you're doing there. And, I love that, there's more and more people out there that want to, that are offering this support and allowing people the opportunity to seek it if they wish, or, if it's something that they want to explore.
Yep. And I loved how you said the shift from people wanting to help to just people wanting to support. I think it's really important to sort of acknowledge that support is, when you feel supported, you feel more courageous, you feel more strength, and you feel more able to challenge yourself.
Mm.
If someone helps you to do it, you sort of don't learn how to do it for yourself. Whereas with supporting somebody, you actually allow people to find their own answers that are right for them with the courage to be able to follow through with it.
Totally.
And I know from my own personal experience, I never like people telling me what I should and shouldn't do, and I still don't to this day. So being able to sit in a space where you can challenge somebody to come up with the answers that they need for them to move forward empowers them and allows them to be able to be more in control of their decision making, rather than feel as though they need to do it a certain way. They can do it the way that they need to do it.
Totally. And like I find myself that can trigger people, right? Because while we have had a huge society of help, help, and that being the common lingo amongst a lot of people, allowing people, supporting people and allowing them to come to the realizations that they've got this, they have this, can be quite triggering for some, because people can become reliant on what we see as help and people helping them, and believing that they're trying to do the right thing for people. And it's interesting, the more that we shift to this support and people having the realizations for themselves that they've got it and they've had it all along. And that doesn't mean we don't seek new knowledge or support from other people. Like even those that seek support in certain areas,
Absolutely. It's imperative. Those that, I think to be in support, you need to know what support feels like.
Hmm.
So, you've got to be able to reach out for yourself so that you can reach out for others. You know,
Totally.
You know, and support. It does. It comes down to what you were saying. Like the word support, you know, says it all. Really, you've got this. You can get there.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, like I'm just thinking on the fly here about the words help and support. You know, you need to go and get help was always something that's been said in the past. You need to go and get help. You need to go and get help. Whatever. Not many people said maybe try and find some support so that you can move through this. You know, it's interesting terminology. You know,
it is
interesting.
It really is, and I think we could do a whole new podcast on this alone. I think.
Oh, I reckon. Yeah, you could split that one right back, couldn't you?
But so if the guys wanted to find you at Gracious Flow, where would be the best place to be able to contact you, Paul, and you and your lovely wife?
So we have a website which is www.graciousflowtherapies.com. There is our Facebook page and our Instagram, which is @GraciousFlowTherapies, and our email is graciousflowtherapies@gmail.com.
Amazing, and thank you, mate. And yeah, I love where this went, and it's you know it's always a pleasure having a conversation, mate. We've discussed this earlier. It's always great.
Yeah. Love. It's been a joy being here, and it's been I love the way that our conversations tend to go. It's great.
Me too, mate. Me too. I have a 3-part question here, if you don't mind, a final 3-part question.
Yep.
So if you were to go back in time and spend 30 seconds with yourself, what wisdom would you share with yourself, your inner warrior, to create a life by design? Also, at what age would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good one. Wisdom would I share with myself? Oh, look, I'd probably go back to I reckon I'll probably go. Would I go back? Would I?
I love that.
I reckon I'll probably go to where I am now, and I'll share with myself some wisdom now.
I love that.
I have gained so much experience, knowledge, awareness, and color from the journey that I've traveled, that the skills that I have acquired are going to stand me in amazing stead for the journey that I have ahead.
Love that. Rhymed and everything. Amazing. Thank you, Paul. As always, love our conversations. And you know, guys, don't hesitate to hit Paul and his wife Sarah. That's correct, yeah?
Yeah, Sarah.
His wife Sarah up at Gracious Flow. If you want to explore, you want to, you know, experience something new, or you know, just have a chat and work some stuff out. Hit these guys up, and I'm sure they can support you.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to.
All right. Thanks again, guys. And remember, explore, create, and be.
Well, thank you for listening. If you found this episode valuable, please take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It really does make a difference. It helps others out there explore their warrior, create a life of choice by design, and be all that they wish to be. Remember, explore, create, and be.